I'm here at NAB in Las Vegas discussing the long-awaited Blackmagic box camera, which now actually has a name, the Blackmagic PYXIS camera. So coming in at $2,995, this camera, in my opinion, is proof that Blackmagic does listen to their client base, and they have delivered.
So let's get the well-known stuff out of the way so I can tell you my hands-on experience at NAB. It is full frame, it is 6K, and it comes in PL, EF, and L mount. As far as the image is concerned, I mean, it's what you can expect from Blackmagic. It looks absolutely amazing. That being said, they did dress up an entire set and had optimal lighting. I mean, this is my Sony FX3 pointing in the exact same place. Anything you point there is going to look amazing. But it is, at the end of the day, the same sensor from the Pocket Cinema 6K in a different enclosure. I would have slid in a CFast card to try to record some footage, but first of all, I didn't have a CFast card. Secondly, the Blackmagic people seemed like nice guys. And thirdly, I'm just not that brave. All right, let's get to the hands-on part at NAB.
So obviously there's a lot to unpack here. Let's start with the form factor itself, the side of the camera. So over here, we're gonna have this mounting plate, which will allow for different mounting options. Blackmagic is releasing a few, but I think it's interesting to see what these third-party companies, I'm sure they're gonna have a field day with this, what they develop in order to allow for different cage options. Currently on the Blackmagic website, we see an option for a Rosetta mount, we see an option for an SSD slot, and then the one that is currently on this camera. On the other side of this camera, we have the built-in screen. Now, a lot of you were talking that you weren't super satisfied with this because out of the box, it's not immediately usable. That being said, if you compare this camera to other cameras on the market, other box cameras on the market, you'll notice that this is not uncommon. And on top of that, this box camera is really meant to be rigged out. So it's not weird that you would be putting a viewfinder or an external monitor on this. Having the screen on the side will allow the AC to keep an eye on the parameters while the camera operator can focus on the framing. On the topic of this side of the screen, there's a dial here. At first, when I first saw that this camera was released, I thought that this dial was for a neutral density filter, and I was stoked. I hate to tell you that this is just to navigate the menu. Perhaps in the future, we'll see Blackmagic release an option with a ND filter, but this is not an ND filter dial. It is to navigate the menus.
On the topic of ND filters, it is unlikely that any L-mount camera would have internal NDs because of the flange distance required between the lens and the sensor.
What I'm most excited about in this camera is, no doubt, the 12G SDI out as well as the BNC timecode in. In my opinion, this is a huge leap forward when we compare this to the old Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, which had HDMI capped at 1080p. That being said, it's not all good news because do keep in mind that HDMI is a bidirectional signal. So we will not be able to use this camera with the ATEM workflows.
These are going to be the first cinema cameras that don't actually integrate with the ATEM workflow.
Right, yeah, not directly. Typically, whenever you're going to the ATEM, you would be coming SDI out, and like you said, there's a return feed in order to communicate from the ATEM to the camera.
And in case you're curious, because I'm sure it's going to come to your mind as well, this Ethernet port, from what I've talked to the Blackmagic representatives here on the floor, will not be compatible with SMPTE 2110. So that is not going to work with the ATEM workflows either.
So on the back of the camera, we have the SDI out, which is 12G, and I'm so excited about that. That's really awesome. Reference and timecode in, and then this Ethernet port. So can we use the Ethernet port for camera control, or is it just for dumping data?
Yeah, it actually could be used for both. So I think most people are going to probably use it for both. So it's a 1 gig Ethernet connection that you can use to upload to like Blackmagic Cloud, for example, to get your data out to be worked on in post right away. But also it can be utilized with our REST API in order to control your camera over a network. So it is possible to do some things with the camera via that network port.
Very cool. And then if we were to compare this one to the Ursa Cinema, that also has an Ethernet port out the back.
Correct.
Is that one is 10G, this one is 1G. Is that one going to be compatible with the new SMPTE 2110 video connectivity?
Yeah, so with the 10 gig Ethernet port, yeah, it does give you that additional flexibility to integrate into that workflow. You can still also use it for uploading, to the cloud and whatnot. But the 10 gig port, yes, it would give you that flexibility to go into that SMPTE 2110 world that is becoming a very exciting new landscape.
So, as someone who regularly has to spool like 300 feet of fiber, I can't tell you how exciting it is to finally be able to just use Cat 6 and whenever one of those breaks, it's significantly cheaper than
Oh,
replacing
most
fiber.
definitely, most definitely.
What I think we can see here is Blackmagic really starting to divide what a cinema camera and what a broadcast camera is. So they now have their cinema line that no longer integrates with the A10 system, but they have their broadcast cameras which start having super 35mm sensors and various different mounting points. Potentially the most curious part about this new box camera is the single mini XLR port at the front of the camera. In my opinion, this is a little bit strange because in the past iterations of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, they always had dual mini XLR. That being said, the box form factor does seem like it would be large enough to support two regular size XLRs. So that's a little bit strange. You can always record stereo unbalanced audio to the 1/8 inch jack at the back of the camera. In any case, this is obviously not a huge deal because if you're recording with this camera on set, you would most likely have a sound recordist who's actually in charge of getting the audio capture. The sound entering the camera is purely for reference.
Concerning the lens mount, a lot of people had questions about whether it was removable. So I spoke with the Blackmagic reps about this, and as far as they know, for now, again, a lot of them say like this is the case at the moment, but things can always change. For now, the lens mounts are not removable and swappable.
As far as the lens mounting options, I see that there are some screws here. It's not possible to replace the mount?
Correct, yeah. So this is actually a fixed mount. Whether something could change in the future, we never know. But yeah, it is a fixed mount. So yeah, you would choose from one of those three options for your needs.
As far as the size of the camera is concerned, here's a side-by-side comparison with the Sony FX6, which I brought to the conference. As you can see, they are quite similar. Much like the new Pocket Cinema 6K, this camera will only be able to record B-RAW internally, either through the CF Express Type B or through an SSD. This camera will have the 12G SDI out, so if you do want to record in other codecs, you can always do so through that. Probably limited to, I think, 4K 60. Anyways, that's all the notes that I have on this camera. I do have the contact information of the Blackmagic rep, so I'm gonna see if they can send this camera out to me so I can make more videos and have an even more in-depth review. But for now, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, a like and subscribe would mean the world to me. And if you do subscribe, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.